I love actors. I just love like this was such a fun process. Hi again. Today I want to talk about auditions. I already filmed this video last night and the file disappeared from my computer, which is cool and exciting, but now I have another opportunity to do it even better. So a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the process of auditioning for my web series, which has been super, super exciting. It's just amazing to see so many people come out and express interest in this project and share their takes on the characters. And we've had over 500 people submit and then over 100 people send in tapes, which is super exciting. So what I want to talk about based on that is all the different things that I have seen from watching many auditions back to back. My video from a couple weeks ago is all about how to get more auditions based on your materials when you submit. And now what I want to talk about is how to nail those auditions once you have them in hand. I also audition a lot. See my 162 auditions video from last year. So I have perhaps more thoughts than the average person from a couple of different perspectives. Our auditions for this project were self-tapes, but I do think that all of these thoughts will be useful for you regardless of whether you are auditioning for something in person or on tape. Make sure that you follow the instructions, do whatever the casting people have asked you to do, unless they're literally impossible. Full body slates are kind of the classic thing that all of us actors hate, although I have thoughts about that in my self-tape hacks video as well. But yeah, some people have preferences about splitting takes up into separate files or putting everything in the same file, so it's up to you to read the instructions really carefully and do everything they ask you to do. That's obvious. For this project, our director asked people to send in a grounded take and a more embellished take, possibly with improv. And the reason we asked for this is because the characters in this show are a mix of gods and humans, so they will likely have different ways of moving through the world. Some interesting things that came out of reviewing those were really getting to see exactly what you think, like how somebody handles a more naturalistic approach versus what their version of a more free approach is. When you have those opportunities to send multiple takes, make sure that those takes are in fact different. I think what's helpful about what we asked is that we specifically said a grounded take and an embellished take. Sometimes people will not give you that much direction and they'll just say different takes, distinct takes, but something you can try is thinking about a grounded one and a heightened one to generate some kind of uniqueness between the two. That said, I still think that your embellished, heightened take should be grounded in your understanding of the character. You'd be surprised at how strong of choices you can make while still remaining true to everything that's on the page that you know about that character, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. And I think something that some people had a little bit of trouble with was the direction of the embellished improv take. Some people were really amazing at improv, and so it was always like, whoa, how dare you be funnier than the script I wrote? But then other people, it felt like they had jokes in mind, and you could see the wheels turning as they did that take, as they were kind of trying to grasp for the jokes that they wanted to make. And I think that perhaps, and I don't know, like maybe we could have been clear about this in the notes, but I also think that unless they say, we want to hear your jokes, I think a stronger approach to improv, and as I was watching these tapes, the thing that was most impactful to me during the improv was when people's freer, looser takes on the characters felt really grounded and showed understanding of the character. So it's not just a matter of, oh, I think this joke would be really great, but making the character feel lived in and realistic. So even though it is a quote unquote embellished take, the most impactful versions of that were where it felt like it was coming out honestly from the role. There's difference between like the character is saying this for the first time and the actor isn't sure what the words are. So we'd always want to lean more towards the former than the latter. Yeah, improv is hard too. So if you struggle with improv, don't feel like you have to put on a production of Whose Line Is It Anyway in your auditions. use it as an opportunity to show how you live in the character. And like maybe consider doing an improv class. They can be very fun. I'm in a stand-up class right now, learning a lot. It's definitely a skill that you can learn, and that can also get you in the room more often if someone wants to work with an actor with improv training, for example. We stand improv classes for sure. Sort of related to the improv thing is the idea of strong choices. And I think that strong choices can be, again, kind of a trap. It's like classic actor advice, and make a strong choice, stand out. But experiencing that from the other side, I believe that the best strong choice is actually one that is grounded in the character. Like, don't do something wackadoo just for the sake of standing out or being different. But if you find something in the moment of the performance or as you rehearse that feels really true, that's an exciting strong choice. That happens to me every so often when I'm auditioning. I'll like do something actively ridiculous and be like, that's what needed to happen in the moment. I don't know. And occasionally cool things will happen after I make a wilder choice. A strong choice is not do something wild for the sake of doing something wild. A strong choice is, as with everything, rooted in your understanding of the character and your understanding of the piece, right? Something else worth mentioning about this project is the genre of the show. So it's a sitcom, rom-com thing, a pretty wordy comedy. My logline compares it to Insecure and The Good Place. So the genre of the piece can tell you a lot about how to approach it. Since it's a comedy, of course, you will likely want to find the light comedic beats in the story, and that can be helped along a lot by pacing. Something we did notice from many people who submitted is just that things were kind of slow. They were just under tempo. And I can maybe take a little bit of responsibility for that because I wrote a very wordy script. So there's just a lot to get out. But when I envision these characters, I envision them talking pretty quickly to each other. This is also just a general rule of comedy. Faster is funnier. I remember my clown class in college. Yeah, our teacher would always tell us to move at the speed of fun, which always meant faster. Fun is fast. Essentially, in comedy, the faster the better, until you can't understand people. Comedy has a rhythm, it has pace, and so you want to be sure to hit that rhythm in your auditions, and 90% of the time that means go faster. I think that note also applies to a lot of drama. You should really take the time to understand if you're taking a dramatic pause, if you're taking a beat, what's happening in that beat, and make sure it's really truly motivated and not just pausing for pausing's sake or for maximum drama. Sometimes this pacing question came down to someone's reader, which is something that you only have so much control over. You're working with who you can get. They've barely had any time with the material. You've barely had any time with the material. So I understand why working with a reader can be difficult. Sometimes the reader is your roommate or your mom or your partner, somebody who's never acted before in their life. And to that, I would say it probably is worthwhile to find another creative person, another performer to read with you, or read the lines yourself, record the lines yourself and read them. As I mentioned in my old video, a couple people did that and I didn't mind it, because if the difference is an agonizingly slow reader who's never acted before versus me hearing the person acting against themselves, but at a good pace, I think that is what I would rather have, a better performance. Something else you can do is ask the reader to read faster. Don't be afraid to give them direction or to find somebody who is willing to take direction as your reader, because that can make a big difference in how you and your performance are perceived. We as a team are trying to be understanding of everyone's circumstances, and if we could see something good was happening in spite of pacing, in spite of reader, whatever, we would often consider calling this person back. I don't think that's a make or break thing, again, because the quality of your reader is out of your control, but do what you can to quality control the reader. That said, I do also feel rather impressed when somebody is able to make magic happen in spite of a not very strong reader. Like, go off. But again, I think why make it more difficult for yourself if you can get a better reader or read for yourself? Set the pace of the scene yourself, you know? And I kind of mentioned this in the other video. The risk of recording the lines and setting the pace yourself is that you don't have as much flexibility in the moment, but if you are satisfied with the pacing that you've set, then that can still be okay and still be worth it. Something else worth mentioning in this sort of genre idea is the character relationships. So in this show, a lot of the characters do have pretty complex relationships, lots of history behind it. But something we noticed was that many actors leaned into the negativity of those relationships. Like, two of the characters are best friends, roommates, buddies since college, and they tease each other, they rib each other, which is, I think, accurate to how friends tend to engage. But some people who read did lean into the negative and made it seem like the characters were annoyed with each other. In a comedy, I think it is good and useful to, when possible, play the positive, or really understand, if you are going to a negative place, why are you going there? And is it funny? Sometimes easier to define than not, but that's another thought that we had. It's just like, oh, these characters do like each other, so I would love to see that in the performance. If those two people are best friends, would they actually be expressing annoyance, or is there another layer, right? I would just be really aware of the relationships between the characters. Something that can help with this is referring back to the character breakdowns. A lot of the time, the character breakdowns will describe the relationships between the characters, certain adjectives or actors that the characters can be compared to, which can really help you understand how to approach them. If you can find the log line or whatever the description of the show is that tells you the tone of the piece, if you're able to find the full script, which we did not provide, so, but reading not just your breakdown, but everybody else's to understand, like, what is the world? Where does my character fit into the world of this piece? Something else that you can do to better understand the tone of the piece is look at other things that the team has worked on, things that the writer has worked on, or any other material that's available about the project. Like, if you had Googled this one with my name, you would have found a couple of different options that might have shed a little bit more light. So if you are trying to really go deep and you have the time and the energy to discover lots and lots of things about the characters, you might be surprised at all the different directions that research can take you in that will help you understand the piece better. And then a technical thing that I think, again, applies to both self-tapes and real life. So most people were out of their scripts, which is great. Maybe they were totally off book. Maybe they used a teleprompter. There was no way for me to tell. So slay, whatever it was, it looked great. A couple of people had scripts in hand, which just made it a teensy bit more difficult to connect with them and see if they really got the piece. So I do encourage you to try to set up the teleprompter thing, if at all possible, when you're doing a tape, which I, again, talk about in my other video, self-tape hacks. But I think that something else that is true is you don't want to be direct to camera, not like this. Do not do this in your tapes. Look to the side. Find a nice, like, not directly into camera location to look in your tapes. In an in-person audition, you'll want to connect for really reals with your reader in the room. But don't stare down the camera, spooky. But also, don't get locked into your focus, wherever that is. Even if you're reading lines off your teleprompter, maybe you got your teleprompter set here, which is great, so you can look here and connect with your imaginary scene partner who's actually your teleprompter. Yay. But you don't want to stay talking here all the time, because in real life, when you're talking to somebody, do you actually look at them the entire time that you're speaking to them? Probably not, right? Like, probably not. What's gonna look more natural? And like, even as I was doing that, I felt like so locked in. What's gonna feel more natural is to kind of, where will I look? I'll look here. What's gonna feel more natural is to feel a little bit freer. Sometimes when you're talking, you look down. Sometimes when you're talking, you look up. Maybe the thought lives up here. Oftentimes looking up is a little bit better in these scenarios so that you can serve face instead of serving top of head. But to each their own, whatever feels natural in your body. But something that I do see a lot in these auditions and also in some other classes is just people getting laser focused on their spot. Like, I do musical theater and you pick a spot on the back wall to sing to or whatever. And it's like, sure, but if it's a person, you're not solely looking at them and defying gravity or whatever. So I encourage you to think about the times that you really want to connect with your scene partner, right? And times that you can either throw a line away or find a thought in a different location, because it will feel so much more realistic to not be totally staring down your hypothetical scene partner in these scenes. Whether you're using teleprompter or holding script in hand, you should still have enough familiarity with the piece to be able to look away from your script and feel comfortable moving through it like that. If the script in hand is your backup, then again, you need to be really, really conscientious. You don't want to deliver a super important connecting with my scene partner line while looking at your script, right? You should still have an understanding of the piece, whether or not you're fully off book. Eye contact is powerful stuff, so use it with intention and don't just get stuck totally staring down. Yeah. Okay, my last thought for this, and then I'm gonna try and edit this guy, get it out the door. Let me know what I missed here and if there are other thoughts. But my last thought is, once you've done all these things, once you have double checked your instructions, reviewed your eye lines, you're familiar enough with your script that you have freedom to look around as you please. Once you understand the pacing of the scene, the genre of the scene, once you feel grounded and comfortable in your improv and all the strong choices that you're going to make, your relationships with the other characters, all of these things, then it is time to let it go. Click send, click submit on the tape, and then walk away. Because there are just sometimes things that have truly nothing to do with you that mean that you may or may not get a callback or a booking, whatever. Sometimes people do all this great stuff and we're like, they are so cool, just not for this character. Let's see them for a completely other character. And other times we fall in love with somebody and we're just like, they don't really feel like a match for any of these characters, but we're so intrigued by them and excited to have an opportunity to work with them in the future. Like, that's absolutely a true thing that we have come across many times. But if you can say with certainty, I have done the work, I am proud of the work that I did on this tape, then you did your job, you know? And I think that that confidence will come over time. The more auditions you do, you'll understand when you feel dropped into the character and when you don't feel that. You'll get some muscle memory for that experience. And I also think that you will see results. Maybe the results are more callbacks, which is a slay. Maybe the results are not callbacks or bookings, but getting called in again by the same casting personnel. The more frequent result that you're likely to see is getting called in more frequently by that casting office, which is clutch. Like, that's so good. You will likely get more auditions. More auditions are the result of good auditions. Callbacks and bookings are like secondary, nice to have. Let it go, move on, be ready to take on the next project. Do the work, grow your confidence, and get comfortable setting your little auditions free and letting them go, you know? I think that's everything I want to say. If you want to learn how to get more auditions, if you want to learn some more self-tape technical stuff, I've got videos on that. And yeah, I look forward to sharing with y'all some more from the callbacks process for this show, as I'm sure I will learn even more from being on the other side of the table for that. Again, I'm like so grateful to everyone who submitted to this project, and so grateful to everyone for taking a chance and coming to play around in the silly little world that I came up with. And it's gonna be really cool. Let me know if this is helpful. Let me know if I missed anything, and stay tuned for more videos. Subscribe for more. There will not be one next week because it's a holiday and I need to chill. But yeah, I appreciate you a lot. The past 2 weeks I've been talking about Nancy Drew games. If you are interested in those, check it out. Otherwise, the majority of what I talk about is still likely to be acting related, creative career related, but I also like to talk about other stuff. So slay. I gotta go. I'm gonna go edit this outside at a cafe and live my best life and drink an iced coffee. I hope you get to do the same. And I can't wait to announce our cast with y'all. Okay, bye.